So we're now going to go ahead and look at actually templating within Laravel. And as we saw in the last video, we use the Blade templating system for this, which is extremely easy to use and allows sort of clean syntax within your views. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll create our sort of document structure, and that will include our doc type, our HTML tags, head tags, title, body, all of that stuff. And then what we'll go ahead and do is we will allow us to sort of extend that layout and implement the content that we need. So this means that we can share the common template between different views without having to write code again and again and again. So if we need to make any fundamental changes to our views in terms of, say, the title of pages, things like that, we can do. So let's go ahead and get started on what our actual markup is going to look like. We're going to have an HTML5 doc type and some HTML tags. We're also going to go ahead and have a head here, so fairly straightforward markup just for a normal page. And we'll go ahead and create a title as well, and let's just say authentication system, and we'll go ahead and create a body too. So I'm not going to keep this within home. That would be silly because I would have to duplicate this for every single page that I created or every single view that I created. But what we are going to do is we are going to yield content from whichever view that we're using. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this and I'm going to paste it into a new file. So I'm going to create a folder here and I'm going to call this layout. And this was still within views, so we can access it within views. And then I'm going to create a new file within layout, and I'm going to call this main.blade.php. Remember the Blade extension, so we can use Blade functionality. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there, and this is now our sort of main layout structure, if you like. And we can have different layout structures, but for now we're just going to stick with the same one. Now what we're going to do is, inside of home, we're going to yield we're going to extend this layout. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and say extends and then choose the layout that we want to extend. Now because this is within a folder called layout, we need to define this in a slightly different way. Whereas previously we've referred to views like make home, we need to do this within a folder. So we say layout dot main. So this is effectively the same as saying layout / main, but it's just the syntax that we use within here. So what we now need to do is within our main syntax, we need to be able to yield this specific content. So we need to choose where we want this content to be yielded. Now in the case of this application, it's very, very straightforward. We don't have much layout. So I'm just going to go ahead and yield the content into here, and I'm just going to call this content. This can be called whatever you want it to be called, as long as it's something easy to remember and it makes sense. In this case, I'm just calling it content because it is content. So why have I implemented this here? Well, what this means is that within home, I'm using this layout.main, so I'm using this layout, but what I can do down here is I can create a section, and what this will do is it will allow me to add that content into that yield section. So I can say section content and then stop. So this is basically the start of the content and the end of the content. And then I'm going to type in home. So home now will be passed to this area here. So it means that if I create another page, all I need is to extend and then use section content to define the content of the page. And that's all we need to do. So this will remain the same throughout any view that we create as long as we extend this layout. This is a very, very basic usage of the Blade layout system, but it's highly effective in the fact that we can just quickly create a layout and then yield content into where we want it to go. And we can yield content into navigation, into sidebars, into footer content, anywhere that you want to yield content you can. In this case, we're just doing it very, very basically. So now that what we want to do is we want to go ahead and check out what's changed within our browser. So before it said hello, we just had a outputting content onto the page. Now when I refresh, you can see it says home. If we go ahead and view the page source of this, you can see that we've got the doc type that we created within the main layout and all of the information that we expected, and we've yielded the content from the home view. So the home view contained just this, yielded into here, and we now have a fully working layout system. So that's basically how we create our templates. Let's go ahead and define our navigation, and what we're then going to do is include this. So we're going to put this in a separate file just to keep things separate from each other. So let's go ahead and in layout create a new file, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as navigation.blade.php. So again, remember the blade extension, we're going to be using blade functionality. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create an unordered list and some list items within it. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and create a link for home for now. I don't really need to do anything else, so I'm just going to go ahead and create a link here to home. Now in the href, we're actually now going to start to look at helper functionality, and we're going to look at routing to the home page whenever we click on this. Now usually when you're building an application in PHP, you'd do something like / there. But what happens if your home page URL changes? Well, we want this to auto update, right? That's the point of using this framework. It's going to allow us a lot better, use of our time by saving time doing things like that. Let's go ahead and include this first of all. So let's go over to our main content area. Let's just say I want the navigation to appear at the very, very top of the page. So let's go ahead and we'll create a nav element here. In fact, we might want to create that within our actual navigation. So let's create that there and indent that. So let's go ahead and include this here. So all we need to do is @include. So it's the equivalent of including with PHP, like include and then passing a string. So we just say include, and now what we want to do is again say layout dot, because we've got it within this folder, this layout folder, dot navigation, and that will just include our navigation file. So now when we refresh our page here, we've got the navigation included as well. So going back to sort of the routing to the home page, we'll now go ahead and introduce the route code that we use to route back to the home page. So like I said, we could just have this as a / and clicking on it from here would that would take us back to localhost. But again, this is the point, we want this to be more effective. So if I inspect this, we've just got a / which will take us back to localhost. But what we can do is we can go ahead and output, so remember the 4 curly brackets to either side, and we use the URL helper, and this is going to be a URL to a route, and the route name is home. Now cast your mind back to when we created our routes. Remember we gave this route an actual shorthand name, and that was home. So here you can see that we are referring to it by its sort of shorthand name, and that's going to link us to our home route. When I refresh and we go ahead and just inspect this, you can see it's got the full URL of the application, which is brilliant, and nothing else. So it automatically knows that clicking this will just redirect us back to this page. If this was any other page, it would redirect us to that page, but we'll get to routing to other pages a bit later. So what we've now done within this video is we've created our controller. We've created our layout. Here we've extended our layout here, providing the content that we need to yield within here, and we've also created our navigation and then gone ahead and included that within our layout. So basically now what's going to happen is any pages that we create within our application are going to still have our navigation, still have our head with our body and all of the information that we've created. The only content that's going to change is this sort of main content area, and it's actually fairly easy for us to set up templating, as we've already seen. So now that we're set with templating, we can carry on and create the additional functionality required to complete our authentication system.